Thank you, sir, for taking the time out. And this is not just a thank you for me, but for all the students who are going to watch this video in future and get the guidance related to the career path that you have had and probably they can emulate.
No, Abhishek, thank you for one inviting and kind of taking the initiative to do something and give back. I mean, it's all of these things add up. So one, congratulations on that initiative, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Let me provide a brief intro to people. So we have Sir Amaresh Tripathy with us. He is an alum of 1999 batch from the Civil Engineering Department. And he went on to do his MS from University of Texas at Austin in transportation systems. Then joined Diamond Technology and Management Consulting, started the information and analytics practice there, and also grew on to become a partner in Diamond. Joined PwC after that as partner and was sort of leading the data and analytics there in PwC. And that was till 2018 when he sort of made another career move into Genpact. And he is right now senior vice president in Genpact and a global leader and leading their efforts or consulting with respect to AI, machine learning, data engineering, data analytics, etc. And there's another interesting fact related to him starting a school of data science at UNC Charlotte at in 2016, and he continues to be on the board of that, and then he's a founding member of that school. So welcome, sir.
Thank you. I mean, it sounds like you're talking about someone else, but yeah, thank you.
No, I mean, it has been such a illustrious career, a lot to learn for all of us. But before we sort of get into the details of everything I talked about, why don't you take us to your childhood? Where did you grew up? About your parents, school, etc.
Yeah, so my childhood, I would say I consider myself like Delhi as kind of home in India. So that was kind of primarily my childhood. I was actually born in I was born in Jamshedpur and kind of spent a few years in Nepal where my dad was posted, but pretty much all my schooling and everything else, I went to Delhi for, and that's kind of what I consider home. I'm a younger brother, and I went to kind of one Anglo-Indian school called Frank Anthony in Delhi, and then Bluebells, a couple of schools, and then went to NIT Rourkela. That was kind of my journey, and my mother tongue is Oriya, so but it was really interesting, kind of for me to go back to my roots in a very different way. I never anticipated, or there was never planned. But yeah, from Delhi, I ended up on at that time there was state-wise quotas to get to Rourkela. I don't know if still is there or not. But yeah, so it was like, yeah, I was representing Delhi in Rourkela, but obviously I could speak Oriya, so that was really interesting. It was really fun 4 years there.
That's so interesting. I was born in Bihar, and then Jamshedpur was Bihar and Jharkhand were together.
Yeah, exactly at that time.
Back in those days. My wife is from Jharkhand. She's from Bokaro. So
Okay.
I have some association with Jharkhand. So, sir, were you top of your class as a student?
I'll say growing up, yeah, I mean, definitely in the top three for all practical purposes, probably apart from like where it mattered, which is like definitely till 10th grade. 10th grade, I was like, yeah, but like 11th and 12th, I definitely wasn't top of I wasn't, listen, I was always in the top 10%, but it wasn't like top of the class and everything. I had like all kinds of other things I was exploring in kind of 11th and 12th grade. But yeah, but that's so I wouldn't say I was like top of the class then. But yeah, and neither was I at top of the class. I think even in engineering school, I was reasonable and kind of did fine. But I say yeah, top 25% has been fine for me. The top quartile has been okay for me throughout my career.
And were you always interested in sort of maths, etc., and that led to your selection?
Not really. My math. I actually don't. Math is very fascinating for me, but that's not kind of what I. Math was never actually. Math was not a very strong subject for me even in high school. I mean, in high school or 11th and 12th. I loved physics. I mean, physics was kind of definitely. I mean, there's math and physics, but then it's different. So there was an applied aspect of it that was obviously interesting. My. I mean, listen, if it was a different generation or different things, my love was history, geography. I loved the liberal arts, and I was good at that, uh, and that's kind of that's kind of if you really would think about kind of this thing, I love physics, but I love liberal arts, and math was fine. That's kind of where I stood.
And so how did you decide and when did you decide to take up engineering? And
Yeah, listen, I mean, for most folks, I mean, if you grew up in, I mean, we were in a middle class Indian household there. You do think about optimizing for. I mean, basically, it trains you to minimize risk and in of some sort or the other from a career perspective, and obviously there are very good reasons for that. So which is why it's like, okay, if you are kind of in 10th grade and you take science, and because pretty much like, okay, I was very clear, like commerce and everything, I didn't even know what it was. And arts no one took. So you take science and then you kind of, so I had biology also, by the way. I did reasonably well in biology. But then, yeah, I mean, it was kind of almost like a foregone conclusion that you will go and study engineering somewhere. And if that doesn't happen, you do something else. That was kind of the default of what I obviously grew up in. So it wasn't really a decision. At some point in time, I thought I'd do something else, like 11th and 12th grade, I think, I mean, which is probably not related to this, but I did a lot of trivia and quizzing, and I thought at some point I'll kind of start a company and do events. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I wanted to potentially do. But yeah, obviously that didn't pan out or whatever reasons, and yeah, I went to an
it's
engineering.
so true for so many of us, right? I mean, true for me as well. Uh, my elder sister took up medical, so that was taken. So the other option,
So there's spot available for internally for family for you.
exactly. So, yeah, so engineering was all that was left out.
My wife's a doctor, so yeah, if that's kind of a thing. So we kind of cover it in a different way.
Yes, yes, yes. So how NIT Rourkela? I mean, you mentioned about you having Uriya roots, and then how civil engineering, like, was that a
I
conscious?
mean, or there's no conscious choice in engineering and anything. Like you just basically sort, like it's a stack rank. You sort the ranks and you kind of say, okay, what this rank at this point you kind of show up, what's available, and it was like Rourkela was a reasonably well-known college. I could have probably gone to a couple of other things, and then you say, okay, there's a ranking of colleges, the ranking of branches, kind of like which is generally happens. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it happens the same way today, and then you kind of figure out, yeah, what do you want to choose, a better place, a better branch, worse place, worse branch, a better place, and that's kind of how you make a call. And I think it's not like listen, I had no affinity for Orissa or anything like that, and that did factor into the choice. The only thing is I knew about the place, uh, I think more than I think Hamirpur, I think, right? Or there was Jalandhar, and so yeah, I mean, so yeah, I kind of knew, okay, that this is a place, and Hamirpur I could probably put in the map, and Jalandhar I kind of knew about it, and we kind of decided. So the choices were not really like, yeah, I mean, like 5 or 6 things. You kind of make a kind of that optimization choice, and you end up where you end up. That's it.
Funny that you mentioned the two NITs where, Bihar board is still not accepted, I think. It is definitely not in my times. I was not even eligible for
Okay, I didn't
something.
even know this nuance till today after spending so many years and
No, so
all
for
this.
example, probably Hamirpur is also one. Jaipur was not accessible to us.
Yeah.
I did my 12th from a Bihar board, so
Mhm.
many
I
states
didn't
in
know
India
that.
do not sort of recognize.
That is hilarious.
Of course, it is. Um, so, sir, take us to the your memory of the first semester. Obviously, language was not alien to you, and
So,
probably culture was also not alien to you. But
culture was, language was not. Culture was alien in the sense that, see, we never grew up as a, I mean, we grew up as a Delhi family, like from a food habits, this, that, everything was alien. And I could understand, I can't read and write, but I can understand the language. That's the advantage, I would say, that they're definitely there. But yeah, culture absolutely was alien.
and in those days, I think ragging was I mean,
Oh my God, yeah. There's some decent writing there. That kind of goes in there. Listen, I mean, I'll be candid. When I went to Rock Club, I was super disappointed. And disappointed when I kind of landed in the city and everything. I've never stayed in a small city at that time, and then you kind of you like the shops close at like 3 hours in the afternoon. Like people want to go siesta and everything. I mean, I can. It was like a small sleepy town. I mean, just from a city perspective, college was kind of fine, but kind of the people you would meet, and this is like one of the best things about Rourke or any RSC actually. I'm like a big believer in that system. I learned so much about life. I mean, especially that first year, than anything, probably even all 4 years, you can kind of argue. But about there were people who have very different backgrounds than me, people who would grow up in very different circumstances than I did. And again, like on all sides of the spectrum, who have very different values. And it's not language. And you just start I was not prepared for that, like from a social perspective. It's like, oh my God, that's like what's hitting at me. And then I'm in a sleepy town. It was disruptive for sure, for all kinds of things. This town, I mean, the college I definitely liked. Uh, the town, I was like, okay, a big deal about it. That's kind of where I stood there. The first year was a lot of like, there's a ragging period and everything, and that kind of gets done. I mean, that was there. But it was just the change. I mean, obviously, one year kind of living in a hostel and you're doing a change. I mean, two of my roommates, one of my roommates was actually both of my roommates were from Bihar actually. And they're still very good friends, but it's very different. Everything was different and foreign, and I was like, there was a little bit of adjustment to do.
yes, yes, yes. But the thing you mentioned about, the diversity that's there in RECs and NITs, that's so great, right? You get to know people from all the different states of India. We celebrate all the festivals,
Yes.
right? Whether it's Lori
I've
or
never celebrated Lodi.
yeah.
I mean, even in Delhi, there's no one celebrates Lodi. So like I mean, by and large, we don't.
And I
Yeah.
remember, we used to do that in stadium, right? The
Yes,
thing that we
that's
had in,
exactly right.
yeah. So that was very nice, the thing about REC. Was there any particular subject that you found difficult in the first semester? Because I struggled a lot with engineering drawing.
Oh,
But like 3 out of
add me
20.
to that list. I think probably got 35 or something like that. I mean, I barely passed engineering drawing, and because I obviously there's some folks who had kind of taken their 11th and 12th grade, and I think they were good, but yeah, I would say probably my favorite subject in first semester was English. It was the easy one. Engineering drawing was just, yeah, that was just horrific. I mean, what's really interesting is my son was like, he's 10-year-old, and they're kind of teaching some machine drawing and engineering drawing as an optional subject in engineering in like fourth, fifth grade. And that's like crazy. I mean, like to even think about it. So I was telling him about my engineering drawing debacles to him 2, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I gave the end term, there were like 5 questions, 50 marks, the
Yeah.
end term, right? And I was, I had to score like 20 to pass or something. And I was thinking that, I haven't done enough. I'm going to fail this subject. First semester, imagine.
Isometric projections. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That was. So what subjects you really liked in the 4 years?
You know what? The subject I really liked, or actually the aspect of one subject which I really remember was numerical methods in math. I was so fascinated. We had not started math at that point in time. I really loved like this whole kind of which goes back to the computing aspect of it. It's like the numerical methods was just fascinating. I mean, that particular thing, I distinctly remember first semester, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Though there's a lot of other things in your mind at that point in time, so you don't appreciate it at that point. But you say you can come back to it, and I did. I had, I mean, that's probably something that from at least the first year that kind of I remember. Structural engineering was a lot of fun too. It was hard, But that was fun. I would say like, and this is like, again, I mean, though I don't remember which particular semesters right now we did. The thing that was really super cool was, I think stuff that I think soil dynamics or something like where you kind of study kind of it's basically fluid dynamics and then this friction soil. I mean, it was really it's a variation of fluid dynamics around soil. And a big part of it is how you build dams and stuff like that. I mean, there was just I think it goes back to the physics aspect of it because those were essentially you are studying physics at that point in time in a very applied way, and all of those things were a lot of fun.
Yes, yes. And so when did you decide that you have to go for MS and then say not a job or there are other options?
Pretty early actually. I think I was probably because I took my GRE in my fifth semester, so I took my GRE way ahead before like fifth semester, or even the end of fourth semester. So yeah, definitely by my second year, uh, I would say I knew I wanted to kind of uh, go and study more. Part of it is probably, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't know how I came to that conclusion. Part of it could be having the escape route. Is like, oh, this is part of it could have been there as from a place perspective. But more importantly, I think I did enjoy going deeper into a few things. So yeah. I'm pretty. I don't know how I got to the. I don't remember how I got to the decision, but I got to the decision and I was pretty focused on it probably fourth, fifth semester onwards.
And then how did you get to this particular college, University of Texas, Austin?
So I actually did ended up. So once I was clear on that, and that was a time where I didn't have a whole lot of. Uh, there was not a whole lot of information. Like you had to actually send paper applications, this and that, and everything. This is like 96, 97. No computer, internet hadn't come to our college at that time. So there was a lot of bits and pieces that you got all your information from, or whenever I'll be go back home to Delhi, you'll get information from them. But one thing I figured out is kind of one of the things to kind of stand out is if you start doing kind of research. So I got involved in all kinds of research during my undergrad days, and that actually opened up a lot of potential opportunities. And the one thing I actually what I really enjoyed was transportations, even then, especially optimization, and that was kind of so my kind of my liking for optimization, and it was so real world. It was engineering, math, physics, kind of all combination there. I started liking it. I don't know where we got exposed to it, but whenever we got exposed to it, I went deeper and deeper into it. And then I started kind of working with a lot of professors, or at least writing to professors back and forth. So yeah, I had, I mean, I was fortunate. I had probably had like I applied to 12 places and I got through all 12. And I've had like a lot of scholarships and fellowships and this and that and all of that stuff. But part of it was I had a very good, uh, I had built up over a couple of years, like a body of work that could stand. And that's why kind of I actually ended up the professor, not the university in this one. And this, he's the professor right now is, I mean, he's one of the world-renowned transportation systems professor. So I actually went and worked for him. That's how I chose Texas.
This is so interesting, sir. This basically tells us that, the graduation years, I think you have to identify what you really enjoy. So it does not matter, you'd have gotten into a branch or department, but you have 4 years to really explore a lot of things and then figure out what you really like. And then you can probably
And it could be anywhere. Most of the research work I did in Rourkela was in electrical engineering. I think at that time there were like 7 or 8 PhD folks. I kind of I befriended one of them, and he helped me think through it. So a couple of professors helped me think through it. Most of my work actually was in electrical engineering at that point in time, because that's where they were doing a MATLAB and other things. Basically, a lot of the I was doing fuzzy logic and neural networks in '97. So, I mean, people in Rockland did it. I mean, you would think that no one probably knows and everything like that, but that people, there were a lot of people who were doing it.
and we had in our final year in electronics, we had a course called neural networks and fuzzy systems. So we had one
Yeah.
paper on that, which was um, which was my sort of exposure to machine learning in a way in
Yes.
Rourkela, and that was also my project work. And professors are so very supportive of
Yes.
whatever you want to do. I remember going to maths department and asking the maths professor to give us a tough problem that we can solve, or I have spent a lot of time in physics department in NIT Rourkela presenting papers there, and then talking to professors in that department. And then they're
Same.
always very, very supportive.
Same. I think, like, see, that there's a physics. I did research work with the folks, like with one of the professors in physics department. I did work with electrical engineering department. My HOD in civil engineering was highly supportive at that point in time. There's a lot of professors who helped me through that, and PhD students, and
Yes.
actually seniors. I mean, it's really funny. I mean, when so my entire passion, and I still will probably go back to it, in AI was evolutionary algorithms. You don't hear a lot about them right now. Genetic algorithms was essentially what I studied a lot. And I found out about us genetic algorithms from a fourth year mining student who was kind of trying to optimize kind of basically the rock sizes or something like that. I mean, he was told me about it, and the whole concept of genetic algorithms just blew my mind. I mean, this is like a back post over a cup of tea. I'm like, he tells me about it. I went and read a whole lot of things about it, and anyway. So that was kind of how I. So you learn from the whole environment and thing that you learn a lot if you keep your eyes and ears open, or if you want to.
Backpost is a good segue, sir. Tell us about some of the fond memories you have of Backpost, in general of NIT Rourkela.
Listen, I mean, I went back like 5 6 years ago, and it's a very different college. It wasn't right now. It's a very it's for all the better things. But at that point in time, it was a much smaller college, and the infrastructure was pretty much non-existent by and large. But what that enabled is a lot of social infrastructure. So, so to kind of go and meet people and talk to people and this thing. So yeah, so some of my biggest uh, memories of Raurkela is definitely kind of the back post and the side post as was Keshto. I mean, that will always be there, because those were the kind of the generally meeting grounds, or watering holes in some ways. And then even like the hostel and the food. I mean, like, for instance, one of the things I always talk about. I think I was in hall two. They've changed their names right now. I don't exactly know which one it is. But the food was fantastic. I always thought the hostel food. So I probably I have a joke with my mom where I tell her, I'm like probably one of the few people who gained weight after I go. I started having hostel food because I thought the food was very good.
Was there used to be a feast on Sunday?
Yes. Oh my God. Sunday feast. That's the one thing. You basically go, you wake up at noon, uh, kind of go and have Sunday feast. Then you kind of go and get tea, go and take a nap, and then you wake up and there's like crappy food. Then you go out and eat out because after the feast the food was really crappy. So that obviously Sunday feast are there. I mean, there's so many memories. I mean, it's like
What were the joints outside called? Was it Madhuvan and Radhika in your days as well?
Madhuban was there, Radhika was there. I think those were the two things. I mean, Radhika is the new one uh,
Station.
near the station, right? Yeah, I still remember. It's like it used to be like three of us would go and spend like $100 in Radhika, which is like a it's a legit decent restaurant, right? In a hotel. So I mean, yes, I mean those were the days for sure.
So tell us about getting into consulting and Diamond, and
Yeah.
how you started the information analytics practice. I think it was, data science it wasn't as popular as it is today, right?
No.
Um,
No.
and then how did you to become a partner in very short span of time? So you had a phenomenal growth there.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is you take some risks, you get some rewards. That's kind of like in careers that are always true. So there's a little bit of that, a little bit of right place, right time. It's a bunch of things that happen. But just a couple of things. So when I was in masters, actually, I really wanted to come and go and do my PhD, and that is kind of what the intent was. And what I realized is while I really enjoyed the academic aspect of my master's. Actually, I enjoyed the academic aspect of my master's way more than I did in undergrad. It was just a fantastic education without a question. Uh, the research aspect of it was not what I had expected, right? Actually, I thought when I was, because it's not like I was not familiar with research. Even in undergrad, I was actually familiar with research. And there was uh, there was a there was a lot more, even as a very junior person helping other people out, there was a lot of, like, I would say, intellectual freedom to pursue what you want to pursue in research in undergrad, because there was no one stopping you to go to whichever whatever path you want. In masters and everything, it's all dependent on funding, and I'm pretty sure. And when you go to the PhD, it becomes a little bit better, but it's still kind of what funding, what objective areas, this and that. So you can start feeling constrained. And the second piece of it was I had an amazing professor, but because he was an amazing professor and a very well-known professor, and he's like one of the top in the fields, uh, he had no time for a master's student. So I mean, obviously, and rightly so. When you have a bunch of students and there's a PhD, and you're kind of you want to help them out through the process first, and all of that led to me to my research. So net, I mean, for whatever reason. And then it was like I was in Austin in '99, which is like the height of the tech boom. You think tech boom is here? There was a tech boom there, right, at that point in time too. And I was like, the mixture of these three things led to, listen, I need to go and explore a few things. So I started exploring a bunch of things within. So I realized in like a year or so that I don't want to do a PhD. I'll kind of do a master's, because that I didn't enjoy that the research aspect of it as much. So when you do a master's, and I was exploring a whole host of things. I did a bunch of things in the School of Business. I did a bunch of things in kind of quality control. I'd interned in startups. So I'd interned with Dell. So suddenly I had like all these interesting, amazing kind of experiences that kind of meant, okay, I need to kind of go and do something else. And I was just thinking, what? And I was kind of interviewing for like United Airlines and their kind of their optimization group. The optimization and transportation was just an obvious one. That's kind of one path. But one of my RSC seniors, actually, Anushtub Naik, and you should talk to him once. I mean, he's like one of the most amazing career paths that you get, and a very inspirational one at that. He told me, listen, you understand math, you're pretty smart, and you understand practical application of it. Go and become management consultant. That's the first time I even heard what a management consultant is. But anyway, so I kind of, long story short, I kind of applied a bunch of things. The reality is it was a time like this. I mean, I would have never gone into management consulting or gone into management consulting if there was like a economic downturn or it was normal time, because I just don't have a normal background for that. It was like boom time, and I think part of it was they didn't have they needed people, and even though I had a like kind of a weird like off the thing background, I got into it, and I joined Diamond, and Diamond was a ton of fun. It's a company I think I still have the most respect for. I've learned a whole lot there. It's an amazing set of talented people, very interdisciplinary, and because they recruited for, I mean, if they recruited folks like me, think about everyone else who recruited. The guy who kind of interviewed me was like a theater guy, and someone else was like a wireless guy. So it was like all kinds of fun people to working together. And but I was like completely fish out of water, because I had no clue what the hell I was doing there, because I didn't have a business background. I didn't understand a lot of those things. But like kind of Raurkela, it teaches you to go and reach out to other people, like-minded people. So I found this group that understood math and micro. They were a group of microeconomists and some computer folks and everything, and they wanted to bring microeconomics and basically computers or database marketing to telecom companies. That's how I say, oh, this is the kind of stuff I can do, because this was natural to me. I can understand the math aspect of it, and as marketing I can get it, but you understood the psychology and behavior aspect of it and everything. So I ended up doing a big project at Sprint, where I was a member of the team, and this was like a group of like 5-6 people who were kind of doing this, and that was my true entry into, I would say, analytics or business analytics in some way. So that's kind of how I got into analytics, through a series of accidents. I had no plans about management consulting or analytics.
But that's what you mentioned about statistics, economics, maths, and then there is computer science and coding, etc. I mean, data science is actually a combination of these two, pretty much, right?
Right.
Very interesting. And then how did you end up? So was Diamond acquired by PwC, and that's how you got into
Yeah.
PwC?
So basically, before that, there's one more story that will be kind of interesting, which is that you talked about your kind of career risk and everything. So I was doing strategy consulting. So like kind of like your background a little bit. I mean, you were doing. I started doing a lot of strategy work, wireless spectrum auctions, and this and that. But by that point, see, I had done econometrics in graduate school. I had done econometrics, operational research. So my technical depth was a lot more than when I left Charlotte. So I was kind of doing that. I was trying to apply some of those things in kind of context of business. And then I realized a lot of these projects and everything, there's a demand where the clients want it. And we cannot fulfill it because when you hire MBAs, no one wants to code SQL, or neither do they know SQL to be candid, right? And on the other hand, they all want to do strategy, but what's really is, I mean, it's the data foundational work that you need to do to kind of go and drive that was missing. The rigor was not there. So that kind of went to, and we had seen it in this couple of these projects. The challenge was we could never staff these projects. We never could get people. And that led to this whole idea is why don't we just create a separate group, which is a unique group of people that just do that. So I kind of raised my hand, or I said I want to do it, or I'm leaving because I'm going to do something else. At that time, there was like newer companies coming in, Mu Sigma, this and that. I mean, I knew all of these people. I mean, all of the people I knew. Inductis, like which is kind of which became like EXL and other things along the way, and that's kind of when I was very clear that's what I wanted to do. At that point in time, I asked for it. Again, some amazing people took bets on. Like I think I was like 27-year-old at that point in time. Took a bet on 27-year-old and say, okay, go and do a 28-year-old and just say go and do it. And I started a business within the company. So they gave me a funding. It was an internal funding. They gave me funding. Said go and start a business and build it. See how far you go. And that started creating the business. And like in 3-4 years, we made like a $50 million business. And eventually, Diamond got acquired by PwC. I made partner before and within Diamond because kind of this, as I said, there's a little bit of risk and you take it, and that was recognized. And yeah, I joined PwC as a partner.
That's so interesting, sir. So if you have an idea, if you believe in it, if you have the conviction, I don't think it is difficult to convince your seniors. They're always willing to take that risk on you, right? And
actually, it's easier to take risks early on. See, the downside is very low, right? I mean, yeah, they're like, okay, I was probably a manager at one point in time. They were like, whatever, like 200 managers, and yeah, you one of them wants to kind of do something, I let him go. Like, what's the worst? I mean, they're trying to do the right thing for the company, right thing for this. So yeah, you more often than not, you get that opportunity. You have to ask for it.
that's such a good career advice for everyone who's just starting their career. That
Yeah.
I mean, don't shy away from taking risk and sharing your ideas. It may become big, and then there will always be people and leaders who are going to support you.
Always,
Yeah,
always.
yeah. Very good. That's it's very, very insightful. And so tell us about this school that you started for data science at UNC.
So listen, I mean, so you could make out there's an academic aspect of it that is running through, right? I mean, I've always actually very comfortable reading academic papers and research papers, even till today. So that's kind of because I had done a bunch of that. Uh, so, and when I realized in data science, there were two. I'd started in a different way, and then it's become something else. And I was not the founder. The school was the founder. I was part of the funding, kind of the members, industry funding members to support that. Just to be clear, but uh, there was another professor who kind of who was driving this agenda at the UNC when I was in Charlotte, and I was running analytics and in PwC. So it was like kind of it was a natural for him to kind of so to seek me out. So we started having a conversation, and I was like, okay, this is like how do you formalize data science education, right? I mean, kind of and because I grew up in I mean, these accidental things happen once in a while, but how do you actually kind of obviously there is a big demand that's coming. We hired like tons. How do you actually formalize it? How do you structure it? How do you do that? So I've always been kind of interested in the education aspect of data science too. And that led to, and by the way, the first thing was, do you want to come and kind of advise on kind of how to do the curriculum? And then I got an opportunity to teach that was the other thing, is who teaches kind of data science. So I still teach like a semester once in a while. So I started teaching machine learning, applied machine learning actually. So that was fun. And from there, I was like, it was a certificate program, and then it became a master's program. And now, 3 years ago, we started a school, which is an undergrad program. It's one of the first three universities in the world where we have like an undergrad. You can do an undergrad in data science. So anyway, so I obviously I spend time with them. I stayed involved with them because part of it is right. It's convenient to me. It's my city, but more importantly, I feel just there's a whole need around it. And right now, I just see it in a very different way, like data science, like engineering. I mean, what's really interesting is, I mean, we don't think about US in that context. It is one of the major reasons, or it's a vehicle for social mobility. I mean, you go to some of the data science undergrad programs, and you see people's background and kind of like I mean, like a third of them they have been the first time college goers. And with such a high demand in the market, if you don't educate people and you don't bring into the right thing, if you do it right, it's a social mobility for generations if you do this. And that's kind of my current passion around the data science piece of it is, how do you use data science for social mobility and education? I mean, we've all been through that. I mean, that we have seen that firsthand, and it works.
That's such a nice thought. And I didn't know that there is an undergrad program in data science.
That's an undergrad program. That's what that's why we started 3 years ago there. So the whole idea about kind of creating the infrastructure for data science, and I work with a lot of chief data officers, chief analytics officers, and everything is I just, if you really would go back, Abhishek, what I really think, if one thread that kind of ties my entire career is I really enjoy and love understanding how people make decisions, right? In different, like how organizations make decisions, how people make decisions. And there's a lot of things that go into it, and there are different levels you can play in that. But that's been kind of a one thread throughout my career that's been there. And part of it is, how do you create the tooling to provide that at scale? And education programs are one of the ways to doing that.
So before we started the recording, you were mentioning about an experiment with NIT Rourkela, which,
yes.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so it was, I mean, it was led by one of my other partners at PwC, who was also an MCA alum, like from 91, 92, I think, went to Rourkela. And he wanted to kind of do something in data science. He used to do a lot of risk analytics, actually, in your area. He wanted to do something for Rourkela, and kind of he reached out to me, and I was like, okay, I know the entire university ecosystem here. We have Rourkela. Why don't we combine the dot and create a school of data, or some sort of a data science program? It was a master's program we started out with in Rourkela, and do it with a partnership with UNC. And that's exactly, we did that. I mean, we did that. We kind of, the whole thing was signed, and there was this thing, and it actually ran for, I would say, a semester or two, or sorry, a batch or two, where you could enter, obviously, Rourkela, do the master's program there, 2 semesters, come here in the US, and you get joint degrees from both places, and the ability to work in the US if you choose to. So that we kind of did that, and for various kind of, I would say, administrative and reasons, it couldn't be sustained. There are rules around, government rules in India around some of these things, and these guys had to do certain things. So anyway, so I think it fell apart, which is sad, but maybe someday.
Yeah, it's such a nice idea. It's such a cool idea. I've seen such experiments on the management side, but on the engineering side, this is such a cool idea.
Yeah.
And I hope it becomes a reality on a prolonged basis one day.
It will happen some way or the other. I mean, right now I'm focused on going and recruiting from Rourkela. I've recruited from there over in a few years. Some amazing talent over the years. Also, when I was at PwC, a little bit when I was in Diamond, and now in Genpact also, we're starting. So yeah, so we kind of try to do whatever you can.
So tell us about Genpact. How did you decide that this is the time to probably switch from PwC to something else? And
probably probably the one word answer is scale, right? I mean, so it's if you think about decision making, how many decisions can you influence and how many decisions you can influence at scale? There are many ways. I said, I mean, this is kind of the same problem I go back to it at different points in time. So I was at PwC, and it was a great, it's like an amazing company, great gig, and I got an opportunity, and kind of I was headhunted uh, when these guys came in. Genpact kind of reached out to me, and two things that really attracted. One was this was at a completely different scale. I mean, my team right now is around 13,000 folks of analysts and data scientists, data engineers, and everything. So, and you are able to do certain things over, and the model is a little bit different, where you stay in a client for a very long period of time. It's not very project based only. It's like longer term thing. So you can have a different kind of an impact and scale. So that was fascinating to me. And I think the second thing which is there is a little bit of a tribute. I mean, there was a little bit of a poster coverage of us where if you think about American Express and Genpact are probably the two companies that started analytics, like in business analytics, like period. I mean, and made India the hub of that, right? There's something to be said about that. This is kind of in some ways the route along which the entire profession, at least from an Indian perspective, has started, and even the global perspective. So many leaders who have worked in these two organizations and gone on to do other things in this space. So for me, it was like, okay, here's kind of the kind of one of the companies that kind of is which started it all, and I get to opportunity to go and lead it. That was pretty cool to me.
So I heard one of your talks where you were laying out the vision that you have and then talking about AI accelerators. And I can understand, where you were coming from. And then we are also the customers of Genpact. We use your AI solutions in many of our processes.
I know that.
So tell us a little bit about that for people who are sort of
Yeah.
following the space.
I'll just simplify one thing as before I kind of go and do that. I mean, just my general philosophy of how the space is evolving and what this is. I mean, see, when we think about decision making, and before I go to AI, which is I think more of a marketing term than a technical term right now, which is fine. But if you really think about decision making, which is I think is the root of it, in every realm, and let's think about this, the business decision making, which is kind of what at least I am interested in. There is assisted decision making. There is assisted intelligence. Basically, there is someone does analysis. You take a look something and you kind of decide. There is autonomous intelligence, which I think driverless cars is probably kind of the other end of that spectrum there that you're trying to kind of go and drive that, which is you don't need human in the loop at all. It will just go and do everything on its own. There are all kind of separate challenges there, which is there. But a vast majority of the space of the world is going to be what we call augmented intelligence, right? Which is machine intelligence will make humans better because then they will guide humans towards making the right decision, and the human judgment and human innovation and thinking will make the machines better. And that orchestration is, I think, where most of work will get done there, right? So if you start thinking about that, kind of like this particular thing that you are talking about, it is about, I think it's NLP, and you kind of go, it's fundamentally it's NLP, but it's a technology that kind of reads through technical financial statements and converts it into making it easier for a loan processing or a credit processing. Kind of, there are many use cases that you can do for a human to kind of make judgment around rather than scanning it all on its own. That's fundamentally what it tries to do, and how you kind of go and drive it. But that's another example of augmented intelligence, which is you have built. There's a lot of complication. You have to understand financial services. You have to understand NLP. You have to understand the context of how the work gets done. But the idea is to get humans to do what humans are better at, which is judgment, innovation, thinking, relationships, and let machines do what machines are better at. So that's kind of that broader area is where a lot of the work over the next few years or over the next 10 years, if you think most of the work will be there of all work that is getting done. And that's a very fascinating thing for us. So how you make decisions and how you make judgments become a lot more important if you're starting today than, to be honest, just the coding aspect of it.
Yes. So any advice for the budding data scientist?
Budding data scientist, data science is an interdisciplinary field, right? And when I started, it was lot less computing. I mean, because my master's thesis was on autonomous vehicles, right? I mean, that was kind of a lot of the things that we were doing was getting a feeding autonomous vehicles, and a lot of the things we couldn't just do because there was no cloud computing, there was no computing on the edge. So there was a whole host of, that's why OR was very important uh, uh, around traveling sales and problem and everything. So it was a lot less computing, it was a lot more math, right? I mean, you just had a lot of math and statistics. Right now, it's a lot more computing than this. But my point is, there's always it's a weird combination of there will always be computing, there will always be math, and there will always be psychology and there'll be always be economics. Those are the four things that always make decision. Choose any. I mean, there's like no other field in the world that actually is, like, in my mind at least, a practicing field that is so rich in all kind of different disciplines that all come together, and different things will become more or less important in different areas and use cases. So my biggest advice is uh, become broader, right? I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, data scientists, you have to become deep. That's just a given, right? I mean, there's a word science, right, built into it. But being broader is what finally will add value.
Yes, that's such a nice way to put it, sir. Let's change gears.
Sure.
What do you like to do outside of work?
I just follow my own advice. I read a lot. So you can probably see some of it there. So I read a lot. I did
Any book recommendations, sir?
all
Before
kinds of, I mean, you have to get all kinds of books. I tend to read a lot of, I don't read a lot of fiction, which I probably should at some point, but I read a lot of nonfiction, but a lot of biographies, and I read history of technology, like kind of how like the first ships were made. There's some amazing books around that, or even like uh, right now reading. I mean, I just tell you what am I reading right now. I'm reading about, it's a book called Billion Dollar Whale, which is kind of the 1MDB debacle there, which is on financial crimes and money laundering, which probably you'll also get a kick out of it. It almost reads like fiction. I'm reading Trevor Noah's biography, Born in Crime, or autobiography, I think, a memoir. And I'm reading a book called American Veda, which is kind of what is the influence of Vedas on American mainstream. It's a fascinating book that's been very well researched. So it's like, yeah, it's fairly diverse, but it's all of them are fun in different ways.
that's so interesting. Thanks for sharing these with us. And then I don't know if I cut you off. Other than
Yeah, apart from reading, so the related stuff is like I told you, I remember I told you 11th, 12th grade, I was thinking of kind of doing trivia and quizzing and everything. That still remains one of those things. And the one thing about COVID is when COVID happened, no one had anything else. We couldn't go out and everything. So we actually, the same school group that we used to do a lot of trivia, I still do it today. With my school group, as well as by the way, one of my big memories of RC Oracle at that time was Hall 3 quizzes. We used to do so many amazing quizzes, like Subrat Mohan, they're all over right now. I mean, Tanmay was my batchmate. So we get together, like it's basically think about Spot REC, part from my school, part from my work. We've always done trivia over the years and quizzing over the years. So we now get together once every few months and do trivia.
I remember there's a friend of mine from my batch who was so fond of quizzing. He used to do a lot of quizzing in NIT Rourkela, and he was so very good in sort of conducting it, right? I'll probably ask him to.
Yeah, he might know someone like Naveen Sharma was there. I mean, he's probably will be the junior most person I know, who was like probably 3 years younger to me, which is kind of like first year. So he's still joins it. So I'm sure if there was someone quizzer, they would know him. Because we are probably 7 or 8 years apart, right? So, or 6 or 7 years apart.
Very good. And then what about your family, kids?
So I have 2 kids. My wife she's a physician. So she practices, she's a nephrologist. And my 2 kids have a 10-year-old about to be 11 in October, and I have a boy, Neil, mother, and my daughter is Meera. She's 8.
So nice. And Neil is a beautiful name.
Yeah.
Very, very, very good, sir. Any closing remark? This was so insightful. From my side, I can tell you that there was so much that is there to learn from what you have shared with us, uh, right from uh, thinking about what you like, and then during your undergraduation, and then choosing that as 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 your next sort of thing to get into, uh, about taking risk, right, which is so very important in your success in a professional career. Um, uh, so there is just so many things about everything you have shared about data science and how we should think about it, and then your advice for the data scientists, right, and how what is going to become important in the field of AI and the two sort of spectrum of decision making. So there is just so much to learn from what you have shared with us, and then probably I'm going to watch it again to kind of pick on everything that you mentioned here, and then see if there are more learnings.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the only, like you said, the final word. I mean, listen, if this is the story. I mean, if people normally pick up interesting things for tidbits here from the story. If someone finds it useful, that's great. But the one thing I've just realized over kind of last 22 years of working, and this is you want to focus on the career aspect of it, is uh, you don't know what's going to be like 5 years, 7 years down the line, right? Uh, and you can't really perfectly plan careers. And in some ways, the uncertainty. I mean, if you're the uncertainty is the fun of it in some ways. But part of that is I've always kind of at least followed the principle of what you like right now. Let's go deep into it and let's figure out how far it goes. And somewhere along the way, it changes. And it starts something else, and something new starts, and then you go far down that, and then you figure out how far it goes, and then it changes sometime again. And it does when you're kind of dealing with, as long as you're meeting with a broad group of people and you're learning from a broad set of things, things definitely will change, and it'll take you in a different direction which you didn't plan, and that's completely okay. But the only way you can plan is what are you passionate about right now, and go deeper into it and see how far it goes. That's been at least my approach.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for taking time out on a Saturday to kind of talk to us, right? This
Oh, I
is
had a lot of fun. It's always fun to talk about yourself, right?
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to stop
Thank
the
you.
recording. Yeah.